I guess it was a case of a lot of us thinking coming up with it. So. Well, any other time I would kind of like ride with them one day to yoga together. I always go there. The first time I tried to call it, but I actually can't. Anyway, work out. So yeah, luckily it was kind of getting over, and it did let me in and grab it. Yeah. So the other deals were on a much lower level. Yeah, they made it higher. Yeah, but they even called it a neighborhood police department and stuff like that.
But yeah, someone used AI and made a fake phone call, and they can hide their number. They're calling from a computer, you know. All right, we're in Job 20. We will see if we actually get through this lesson. I had planned on already being done with it, but I am okay. Going at the pace we're at, we're still fine. We are right at the end of what is known as the second round of speeches, the second time his friends all talk. And so his friend Zophar is the one speaking here. Now, I just briefly mentioned at the end of class last time, Zophar doesn't really have a lot of new things to contribute, but he kind of just feels like he has to talk because he's just so mad, is what he says. Like, I'm just so upset, I'm just so irritated. I was going to be quiet, but I just can't be quiet. And so be prepared. There's nothing radical or brand new in what he says, although I will say that I don't find a lot wrong in what he says. It's just the problem of sometimes these friends speak in like general truths and then extrapolate to what Job's situation is, basically saying it's his fault. But anyways, we'll see what we find out of this. Let's go ahead and read chapter 20. Then Zophar the Naamathite answered, Therefore my disquieting thoughts made me respond, even because my inward agitation. I listened to the reproof which insults me. The spirit of my understanding makes me answer. Do you know this from of old, from the establishment of man on the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, the joy of the godless is momentary? Though his loftiness reaches the heavens and his head touches the clouds, he perishes forever like his refuse. Those who have seen him will say, Where is he? He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he's chased away. The eye which saw him sees him no longer. His place no longer beholds him. His sons favor the poor. His hands give back his wealth. His bones are full of youthful vigor, but it lies down with him in the dust. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, he hides it under its tongue. Though he desires it, it will not let him go. Or he will not let it go, but it holds him in his mouth. Yet his food and his stomach is changed, the venom of cobras within him. He swallows riches, but will vomit them up. God will expel them from his belly. He sucks the poison of cobras, the viper's tongue slays him. He does not look at the streams, the rivers overflowing with honey and curds. He returns what he has attained. He cannot swallow it. As to the riches of his trading, he cannot even enjoy them. For he is oppressed and forsaken the poor, seized a house which he has not built, because he knew no quiet within him. He does not retain anything he desires. Nothing remains for him to devour. Therefore his prosperity does not endure. In the fullness of his plenty he'll be cramped. The hand of everyone who suffers will come against him. When he fills his belly, God will send fierce anger on him. It will rain on him while he is eating. He may flee from the iron weapon, but the bronze bow will pierce him. It is drawn forth and comes out of his back, even the glittering point from his gall. Terrors come upon him. Complete darkness is held in reserve for his treasures. Unfanned fire will devour him. It will consume the survivor in his tent. The heavens will reveal his iniquity. The earth will rise up against him. The increase of his house will depart. His possessions will flow away in the day of his anger. This is the wicked man's portion from God, even the heritage decreed to him by God. So, like I said, nothing brand new. This sounds very similar to a lot of the stuff that was said before, but he just had to speak because he was so offended in his heart. And so, what arguments, or you could almost sum it up into one, but I would say, what points is he trying to make from all of the things that he said here? Jerry?
He's trying to make the point that everybody that's evil has a horrible life here on earth, and it's not that way. And in fact, Job pretty well brings that to in the next in his rebuttal.
Yeah. So it's they might enjoy it for a little bit, but it's going to get bad. They're not going to be able to enjoy it forever, right? Good. What else is he arguing here? Or what do you notice about his words here? All right. I'll go ahead and offer a couple of things. He talks about his legacy, right? What's going to be the legacy of this man's children and family? Robin?
Was it that they'll give away all his wealth and spend his wealth, which sounds like Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. So there's going to be no legacy. This man, because he's wicked, anything he accumulates in this life is going to be squandered by the next generation. There's no generational wealth among evil people. Now, that goes back to what Jerry said. Do we know that to be true, right? Are there evil families that have made their wealth in bad ways and it passes on from generation to generation? There actually isn't there, in this world? Go ahead, Eric.
I said Jesus talking about it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven is the opposite of what this guy's saying.
Okay. This one. And I'm muted. Now I should be on, right? Okay. Now people at home can hear me. If I talked loud enough, maybe that picked up on one of the other ones. Who knows? All right. So what else does he say here? What are some things that Zophar has observed, or he says everybody knows, or things that he believes to be true? If the microphone's working, Harvey's got a comment. If they do.
In 5 and 6, he's absolutely right. The joy of a wicked or the evil is short compared to what it's going to be later on.
Good. Yeah, so the things he says are true depending on what time scale, right, we're looking at. Because we all agree the joy of the wicked is eventually, and in a long term, it's going to be temporary, right? Now, we do know in this life, evil people get caught, and whatever happens, whatever they're doing, they go to jail for it. You see these like CEOs that are telling lies or cheating people out of their money, and they go to jail, right? However, in this life, we also see people get away with it, right? Or because they have enough money, they don't get a harsh penalty and stuff like that. But we all know ultimately, when God is involved, the joy of the wicked is fleeting. And the longest they've got for it is this life. So it really is a matter of timescales, what we're talking about with Zophar's words here. Tom?
Yeah, Zophar is very bitter, as we talked about in the beginning. He feels like he's got to avenge himself somehow against Job. And he seems to be talking about all of the wicked, people in the world, and he's projecting all of those things onto Job, like when he says, because he's oppressed the poor and forsaken the poor, violently taken things away. And, we know that's not Job, and it seems that Zophar should know that too, but he's really projecting all that on Job.
Yeah, later in the book, in Job 31, he's going to say, me, I've never, ever oppressed the poor. I've never taken something from anybody. I've never kept their wages when I should have paid them. I've never done these sorts of things. But you assume that because what I'm going through is so bad, I must therefore have done bad stuff. But it's kind of like, show me. If I really have done that wrong, why didn't you point it out along the way? So the idea that bad stuff is happening to you, therefore you must have done bad stuff. That's the problem with his premise here. There's not always an equal give and take. And sometimes wicked people get away with it for a very long time. And sometimes good people have a rough lot in life. This world is not as neat and orderly as their philosophy tries to make it. Any other observations from what Zophar says in this chapter? What does he say is going to be the wicked man's legacy? Because I think there's probably a lot going on in their heads about what is Job's legacy here. But what does he say? My version actually uses the word heritage, but what is he going to leave behind? Rick?
Yeah, basically that God's going to take inventory of the scumbag that he's been and is going to relieve him of all the good stuff he's got and then deal with his wickedness,
Yep, that's exactly right. So the legacy is going to be God takes him out, right? Now, the problem is we think about Bible stories. Can you think of a lot of wicked people that God took out, right? There was Gideon's son of Abimelech, tries to make himself king and honor himself and make himself so powerful. And God makes it so a lady throws a big rock out of a tower and crumbles him in the head, and his whole legacy, his kingdom is gone. Everything took from himself. King Saul made a mighty name for himself, and God wiped out Saul's legacy completely. There are plenty of examples where he's right, but there's also exceptions to the rule, right? Go ahead, Eric.
I would say in contrast to that is that those were people God decided to wipe out, and they were all in the prime. They weren't suffering when God took them out. He took them out in their arrogance, not in their suffering.
Yeah, yeah, and they're assuming that God is personally attacked Job because of these things, and that's not the only reason bad stuff happens. So Jerry's got a comment.
I saw kind of he inferred something when he said that his legacy would be gone, and that would mean his family would be gone, and his family's gone. So he's inferring that Job must be one of these guys because he's lost his family.
Yeah. So basically, if the shoe fits, wear it. You must be evil, dirty, rotten sinner, right? Because your legacy's gone. Everything you've earned, gone. All your wealth and riches, gone. Your family, gone. Therefore, you must be evil. You know. Now, here's the funny thing. What can't his friends see? What can't they know? That true, yeah. I guess I had an answer read. The future, right? Have you ever hit a low point in your life? Ever? And did you ever come out on the other side stronger, better, wealthier, better off? Right? So to judge someone based on one point in their life, wow, this is the worst, therefore everything must be wrong, and they must be God's enemy, and all this. I mean, I've known people who were given diagnosis of cancer, came through healthy on the other side, lived a super long life, 30, 40 years longer, and were healthier than ever on the other side, right? I've known people who lost a job, it was devastating, they were in a horrible, terrible state, and then found a better job, and on the other side, life was better. I've known people who have lost children, and it's not that ever goes away or gets better, but it's not the end of their life that all of a sudden there is no possible joy ever again in their life. So there can be incredible low points, even tragic, but that doesn't mean, like, we don't know the legacy. That's the thing. They are stepping into a divine judge position without the knowledge of being a divine judge. And ultimately, that's what I think the problem is with these three friends. They're not God, but they're speaking for God. And if God's not spoken for himself, we ought to be careful not to go further than what he's revealed, right? Rick?
I think this is a great reminder of why we don't whittle on God's end of the stick when it comes to people's souls. It's tempting to look at someone and say, you're lost or they're lost. And obviously we're not stupid. We can look at the totality of someone's life and say, I think they're in trouble. But, we, myself included, we can judge people and feel like we're in a position to say, that person is or isn't, right with God or saved, and we can really miss the boat. And that's kind of what Job's friends have done, is they've basically decided to put themselves in God's position and speak on that. And I think a book like Job ought to really give us pause, and of course Jesus as well too. Says, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's humbling, because it's easy, in my estimation, to look at some people and just think, what they're doing, and just to assume that what's happening means this, when it's like, my perspective, man, I can't even balance my own life. How on earth do I think I know all the ins and outs of someone else's?
Yeah, eternity and judgment day is going to surprise a lot of people. Some good, some bad, right? Go ahead.
I was kind of expanding on that, knowing, like, I've met Christians, they'll declare so-and-so is in heaven or so-and-so went to hell. And I'm like, that's not your place. I mean, you should say, I hope they're in heaven, or I fear they may not be there. But to declare, I hear people declaring that so-and-so is in heaven now. You don't know that. You don't get to judge that. Yeah. And it's kind of like we put ourselves in these guys. Okay, this is what's going on with you, but we can't judge a man's heart. We don't know what they may have hidden or what they may have fixed before they died, and we don't know that.
Yeah, and God's holiness and his desire for truth and goodness and all that, we underestimate that, but we also underestimate his grace and mercy, I think, too, right? And the good things going on behind the scenes and the forgiveness that he wants to lavish upon people. So I'm just not God, and I've got to admit that, and don't argue as if I am God. And if you see the world as lost and saved, and you just know that from people looking at them, reevaluate, because you don't. You're not God. And it's a neat way to think, and the order of the world is neat that way, but there's so much we don't know, right? Good. So this is the last thing Zophar is going to offer. I don't feel he offers a whole lot of brand new wisdom in this. He will be rebuked by both Job and then later Elihu, a lot of the things that he says, and even God himself is going to say, you got to repent. So let's go ahead and see Job's response in chapter 21. And I realize I have not been moving PowerPoint. I will put my answers to the questions here. You guys already answered them. But I think, there we go. So basically you said all of that, or I said all of it during this. But if you're a note taker, you might want my answers. I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 21. Then Job answered, "Listen carefully to my speech. Let this be your way of consolation. Bear with me that I may speak. Then after I've spoken, you may mock. As for me, is my complaint to man? Why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be astonished. Put your hand over your mouth. Even when I remember, I am disturbed. Horror takes hold of my flesh. Why do the wicked still live? Continue on, and also become very powerful. Their descendants are established with them in their sight, and their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear. The rod of God is not on them. His ox mates without fail, his cow calves does not abort. They send forth their little ones like the flock, and their children skip about. They sing to the timbrel and harp and rejoice at the sound of the flute. They spend their days in prosperity. And suddenly they go down to Sheol, and they say to God, 'Depart from us. We do not even desire the knowledge of your ways.' Who is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what will we gain if we entreat him? Behold, their prosperity is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. How often is the lamp of the wicked put out? Or does their calamity fall on them? Does God apportion destruction in his anger? And are they like straw before the wind, and like chaff which a storm carries away? You say, God stores away a man's iniquity for his sons. Let God repay him, so he may know it. Let his own eyes see his decay, and let him drink the wrath of the Almighty. For what does he care for his household after him, when the number of his months is cut off? Can anyone teach God knowledge? Is that he judges those on high? One dies in his full strength, being wholly at ease and satisfied. His sides are filled out with fat, the marrow in his bones is moist. While another dies with a bitter soul, never even tasting anything good. But together they lie down in the dust, and worms cover them. Behold, I know your thoughts and the plans which you would wrong me, for you say, where is the house of the nobleman? Where is the tent, the dwelling places of the wicked? Have you not asked the wayfaring men? Do you not recognize their witness? The wicked is reserved for the day of calamity. They will be led forth in the day of fury. Who will confront him with his actions? And who will repay him for what he has done? While he's carried to the grave, men will watch over his tomb. The clods of the valley will gently cover him. Moreover, all men will follow after him, while countless ones go before him. How then will you vainly comfort me? For your answers remain full of falsehood. So he asks a very different question, doesn't he? Why are the wicked still alive? And if that seems like kind of a mean question to ask, I'll just personally share my experience about when I started feeling this way. I don't know, I used to be able to read any sort of news story, and I would just kind of be interested, true crime, all that, whatever. But once I had children, like, there are certain stories, and I hear about, like, okay, this person just the other day kept their kid chained in a car since 2024, and a kid comes out of there, and I just can't read that stuff anymore. And the headlines are gruesome and horrible. And after having children, man, there's some jobs I know now I could never do. I could never be probably a counselor in a school for kids. I couldn't be a social worker. These things, because, like, my gut would just, I don't know if I'd get angry and beat someone up, or I'd just be horrified and depressed and led to curl up in my bed. Why are the wicked still alive? Why in the world can they get away with it for decades? Or, you know, this stuff horrifies me. And so the question that some people ask is, how could a good God let bad things happen to good people? But the flip side of that is also true. How could a good God let wicked people live? And, anyway, so we see what Job's wrestling with. This is something I wrestle with too. Go ahead.
I don't know, I guess if you look at it at the face that sin is sin, we've all been wicked at some point, so we all should be dead. So that's why wicked people get to exist, because they all have hope. Or God gives them time to not be wicked, hopefully.
Yeah. That's the eternal perspective, right? That's what we don't have. And if it were up to me, there were certain sins that'd be like, okay, if it's been proven with beyond a shadow of a doubt this person did it, they're gone. Death penalty. I'm of that opinion for some things. But I'm not God. I don't know what's coming in the future. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I'm not in a position to know. What will that person do 20 years from now if they sat in their cell and they read their Bible and they felt guilt for the first time in their life? Like, there's a lot of things I don't know. But I have to wrestle with them because I'm in a world that's imperfect and flawed, right, Eric?
Paul, people freaked out when they first saw him. This guy kills people.
Yeah. He had to have Barnabas come and vouch for him. And if it wasn't for Barnabas, I doubt the Christians in Jerusalem would ever have let Paul join their number. Because people just don't change that way, right? But if we believe in the gospel and its power to change hearts, King Manasseh in the Bible was literally called the worst king that they ever had. And he was so rotten that, Manasseh is the reason why they were taken captive. And so, if you have a comment, sorry, I got a little roll here, but Tom, in a second, get to you. But Manasseh, I believe, is going to be in heaven, even though he literally killed children. Because when he was sitting in a jail cell at the end of his life, he realized what he had done was so evil and spent the rest of his life trying to make up for it, knowing that he couldn't, but trying. And so, we just don't have that eternal perspective on things, right? But Job is asking a real question. How in the world can a good God let these evil people live? Because they are still living, a lot of them. Right, Tom?
And the corollary, I think, to that thought is just because everything is going smoothly and swimmingly in our lives doesn't mean that God approves of the way that we're living and that we need to take honest inventory of what we're doing and how we're behaving, because that does not mean that we're right with God.
Yeah, and that's a very superstitious, pagan way of looking at the world. Like the Eastern thought of karma, right? Good karma follows people who kind of ranked up that karma in a past life or in this life, right? Good things follow good people. I know too many exceptions to know that's not true, right? In this life. Once again, you have to narrow it down to the perspective. I believe ultimately God is going to handle every truly evil-hearted person who has no intention of repenting. God's going to sort that out. And I'm glad he's in charge of that and not me. But there's some things here where I look up and there are people who get away with evil, and because they got the money, the power, the influence, the connections, whatever, they get away with it. And so that's the question. Notice what he says. No, their families are still here with us. Some of them have big families. Their descendants are established. Their crops are doing great. Their cattle are doing great. But there is an equalizer, right? So Job isn't a complete good. Wicked people always prosper, right? What is the equalizer of this chapter? Laura?
Both good and bad will die. Everyone will die.
And I think that's one of the most profound things and important things to keep in mind with good and evil questions, right? He's like, they're all going to be worm food. He literally says that, right? The worms are going to be eating them all. So Job doesn't doubt that God's going to handle it eventually. And he says even wicked people are going to eventually meet their maker. He just wonders why it couldn't happen a little sooner, right? So, once again, I don't think Job has a lack of faith. He's just admitting that he doesn't understand why it's not fair. Go ahead, Laura.
And again, he is referencing like their doom, the day of wrath. So another tidbit that he has some type of insight
Yeah.
of what happens after we die.
Good. Yeah, earlier in the book, he had talked about his Redeemer in the positive side, right? God lives. Here, he talks about the other side of it. He knows there's an eternal punishment. It will eventually be bad for the wicked, but it sure would be a whole lot easier if, after a few months, the wicked suddenly failed, right? That's just not how it works. What else do you notice from what Job has to say here? Oh, and I thought I put transitions in there. You have all my notes right away. But what do you notice from this? Anything else stick out to you? Robin's got a comment here.
He says that they're speaking falsehoods and that they're not representing things accurately.
Yeah. If they were honest, they would realize even the things they're saying aren't true, and they know it. Because they've let it get personal, and so they're saying all these things because they don't like feeling wrong or judged or guilty. And frankly, they don't like the idea that, their friend is allowed to say this stuff that sounds miserable and horrible. And so they are telling lies from what they should know to be true, right? Did you have your hand up? Okay, Harvey has a comment too.
That's been my observation throughout this book, that these three friends, you don't need them friends to help you out, because like Jerry and I talked last night, they weren't very good friends. And they're constantly cutting Job down. If somebody had treated me like this, I know I'd probably be so low I would just give up. But you got to give Job credit. He stuck with it, and he succeeded, really excelled in the end. But his three friends, they're not, I believe I would get rid of them as friends.
Yeah. Sorry comforters, right? The word he uses to describe them, I think, is pretty accurate. And we all have various levels of good friends or bad friends. Isn't it nice to know, though, we have a Redeemer who actually listens, who's living, who's been through what we've been through, hears all of our prayers, wants us to approach him frequently in prayer. I wrote about this in Sunday's article. Just everything that Job keeps asking for gets answered in Jesus Christ. And I don't know how much knowledge he has at the moment and all of that, but if he knows about what God did and God's plan, I think he's satisfied right now. Depending on if you believe you get immediately translated to heaven or if you're in the waiting place and all of that stuff. But Job's going to know. But at this time, he knew there's a big gap. Something's missing. And you know how you can deduce, from the missing facts, you can kind of figure out the problem, right? Sort of like a math problem, figure out the missing variable or something like that. He can figure out what he's missing, but he doesn't know how to solve for it. Jesus is what he's been missing all along. He does talk about this, you can't teach God knowledge. You can't stand on his level and say, well, actually, God, don't you know you're not really fair? Nobody can stand up and argue with God that way, so he knows God's way above him. He just wishes there's some way to branch the gap and they could talk together and understand. You get two friends together who have misunderstanding. Hopefully, over time, you guys can come to you can figure it out, right? But how do you do that with God? Without Jesus, I would argue you can't, right? You guys already see how I answered the rest of the question. Job says you could literally ask everybody. Now, they already said, hey, just ask anybody. You'll see what I'm saying is true. Job's like, no. Truly, ask anybody. Are there wicked people who get away with it? Yes. Are there wicked people who are still rich and they don't lose all their wealth? Yes. Are there righteous people who suffer? Yes. We're not that unique here. You can ask anybody. And, they're using dishonest arguments. I think you guys have already pointed out that. They're just not good comforters. So, to recap, what makes a good comforter? We've seen the bad comforters, right? So, before we move on to the next chapter, let's just talk about that. What makes a good comforter? When your friend is low, when someone's going through stuff, what advice have you learned so far? We'll start with you, Rick.
listen without the intent to fix.
Good. I mean, that that probably sums up the bulk of it, right? Is use those ears, listen. What do they need? They need a listener, right? Go ahead, Eric.
Say early on, just be there in silence sometimes. You don't have to say anything, just sit with them.
Good.
Just do mundane things with them.
They need you to be present, right? But they don't necessarily need all of the other stuff going along with it. Good. What else makes a good comforter? Connie and then Laura.
I'm not initially really answering that question, but I remember a woman down in Bible class years ago, and her daughter died. And she was like 18, 19. And she said it really hurt because no one ever came to her to talk about her daughter. So I think, while this is true that we need to listen, sometimes we got to take things like that. You know, they were just afraid. They didn't know what to say, so they didn't say it. So I do believe listening and try not to fix it, but also sometimes we have, I mean, that has stayed with me for years.
Yeah.
Please, I like to talk about her.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Knowing the difference, right? When is the time to try to fix it, and when is the time to talk it out? That gets to knowing them. What do they need, right? Come to them where they are. Laura?
Kind of along the lines of trying not to fix it is try not to explain why this is happening to them, because that's a question I think someone who's suffering is why. Sometimes they'll say, why am this happening to me? Don't give them an answer. Just
Yeah. I'm sure they probably have thought that same question and come up with many other answers themselves, right? Trying to sort out meaning. Yeah. Now, you could say, there's lots of other things positive to say, but sitting there and trying to wrestle it out, well, God just believes the best in you, and he you know, maybe he's got a lesson he's trying to teach you, and here's the lesson. Like, okay, listen, figure out where they're at, and be the kind of friend they need. I mean, not that you can't be positive and encouraging. God hasn't left you. I'm sorry you feel like you're down in the dumps. God's still here. I'm not saying don't say anything doctrinal, but like you said, don't be trying to sort out exactly why. I know somebody that tried to sort out, well, it's because this person got a certain medical treatment or didn't get a certain medical treatment, or because this person didn't have enough faith or whatever. People do that sort of stuff too, and that's awful, you know. You know, for some magical fix, and you're basically saying, well, if you only would have done it my way, you would have fixed that problem, right? It puts the ball in their court like they did it. They made it happen to themselves. They're not asking for that, and sometimes bad stuff happens, and there's not really a specific reason. It's just because we live in a broken world, right? Normalize just saying, that really stinks, I'm here for you, right? Any other thoughts on being a good comforter? All right, so I don't have a PowerPoint for it, but let's move into our next round of speeches with Eliphaz. He's going to chime in again after Job's response to Zophar there. Then Eliphaz the Temanite responded, "Can a vigorous man be of use to God, or a wise man be useful to himself? Is it any pleasure to the Almighty if you are righteous, or profit if you make your ways perfect? Is it because of your reverence he reproves you, that he enters into judgment against you? Is not your wickedness great, and your iniquities without end? For you've taken pledges of your brothers without cause, and stripped men naked. To the weary you've given no water to drink, from the hungry you've withheld bread. But the earth belongs to the mighty man, and the honorable man dwells in it. You've sent widows away empty, and the strength of the orphans has been crushed. Therefore the snares surround you, suddenly dread terrifies you, or darkness, so that you cannot see, or darkness, so you cannot see, and an abundance of water covers you." Let's just stop there for a second. What has he just said about Job? Go ahead, Laura.
When I was reading this earlier, I'm like, he gives the most horrible accusations against him with no reason. I mean, really, he has no evidence of these things, or he doesn't say he has evidence, but this is what you must have done.
Eliphaz has not stooped to the deeply personal until here, but it's like he's just so fed up. He took money from widows. Like, when did that happen? Like, why didn't they call him out on it before if they knew it was going on? Right? Go ahead, Rick.
And just the liar, liar, pants on fire seems to kind of be the accusation here. Just completely assuming and impugning things that are just, Job, you are flat out lying. There's just no way. He's so sure that Job's a liar.
Yeah. Man, this is just, what an ugly, ugly thing to say. I mean, from someone who says they're your friend and they are there for you, right? It's all your fault. You've been rotten. You've cheated your employees and workers. You've taken advantage of the poor. You're just a bad guy, right? And you think God just randomly chooses good people to judge? No, you must be wicked. You know, that it's obvious, right? The whole world can realize this. Look real quick at question 1 I asked in the worksheet. This is probably something you're getting used to by now, but how does the length of the speeches in the third round compare to the first and second round? Go ahead.
Shorter and meaner.
Yeah, generally shorter in the tone. The second question, meaner, right? It is more personal. They aren't holding back. There is no civility. It is just, you're a dirty, rotten sinner. No, I'm not. You guys are liars. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You guys are double liars. Like, this is like schoolyard bully level of talk, right? These are supposed to be the wise men that sit in the gates of the city and they judge things for people. And it's devolved into just slinging accusations that are baseless. Honestly, sounds a little bit like politics. Now, sometimes those accusations do have merit. However, there's plenty of them that are just made up too, right? But it's ugly, right? Like, you're evil. You're basically Satan. You're evil. You're also basically Satan. And that's kind of how it goes. And there's no, right? Let's talk about the issues. Is there a reasonable compromise? Could we work our way to finding a way to work together? No. There's none of that, right? These guys are not going to be convinced of the other person's point of view. Go ahead, Eric.
The more I've read these, the more I'm kind of convinced in the background that Satan is using them as accusers to get him to curse God. And they got meaner and meaner and meaner as it went on.
Yeah, and Satan himself is absent, but I think he's very much working through Job's wife and Job's friends. So, go ahead.
Through all of this, I mean, they're all coming from really a faulty premise, a faulty worldview that says that, and we've said this multiple times, right, that the wicked will suffer and the righteous will be blessed. But they're all coming at this from the perspective, it seems to me, that without taking Satan into account. He's only mentioned in the beginning, and that's it. Their concept, at least the three friends, and maybe even Job's, of what evil can do in the world and what Satan can do in the world doesn't come into their idea in their head at all. They don't acknowledge that there is, that he does have power over things that happen in this world, and he can influence things and change things and manipulate people and hurt people. And it just doesn't come into their thought at all. So all of their comments, all of their thoughts are all just around, God, God, God. Well, yes, but there's also another player on the field here that they're just not acknowledging. And so it makes them all look at it from one direction as being oppressed by God as opposed to being attacked by Satan.
Yep, that's exactly right. Good. Any other thoughts on just kind of summing up how it's going to go? Got Connie over here. And Harvey, did you also have your hand up? Okay, so you can just pass the microphone whenever you're done, Connie.
I was just thinking, you would think there would be sympathy there, maybe in the beginning when they just sat there. But there had to be sympathy, and they don't have it. They lack sympathy. But they're looking at this man, has boils all over him, and all these things. They know he's uncomfortable. And when we choose elders, we do a man of character. and you should know him. These are friends. They should know that he was a man of character.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder, there was jealousy there. So you're not as perfect as
Yeah.
you made other people think of you.
Yeah, it's exposing everyone's faults in this, isn't it? Go ahead, Harvey.
You know, if you look at, what is that, verse 4, he asks, whenever, is it because of your fear that he corrects you? You know, I don't think Job feared God to the point of being afraid of him, because Job was a righteous man, and he knew he would be with God on the other side. But the ones that fear God is the ones, like this friend, he has nothing going for him, so he wants Job's life to be as miserable as he is. Basically, it boils down to it. You know, because today, why would we say we fear God? If we fear God, why do we strive to be with him? We fear falling into the hands of the living God in an unrepentant condition.
Yeah, and we use the word fear in, I think, a different way than they would have back then. You know, we should fear God in a way that we have reverence for him and respect and honor, and we respect his power. But to be absolutely terrified of him, we shouldn't be. You know, and I think there's not enough of either one of those from some of these characters here. But go ahead.
I've discussed with people, it's the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. It doesn't say the fear of God is wisdom. If you understand God, you shouldn't. Fear is what leads you to the wisdom to understand what God really is, and you shouldn't be afraid then.
Yeah. And this is going to come up again in chapter 28. Job is going to have this, well, we'll talk about if Job wrote it or someone else did, but there's a really cool section in there that talks about where do you find truth? Where do you find wisdom? And it really is only with God and fearing him and respecting him. But their idea that a man who truly reveres God, well, God wouldn't pick him out and single him out to cause trouble. They don't know the prologue, do they? They don't know how it works. They don't know the conversation between God and the devil. And it shows here. So we'll talk more about Eliphaz's speech. I just wanted to introduce that tone from that first little section so you guys can see kind of how far he's fallen. So we'll pick up like halfway through question 2 of lesson 5 on Sunday evening. Thanks everyone for your preparation and your good comments. I look forward to digging in deeper with you guys.
Good evening, everyone. We will begin singing tonight with number 1. It's "The Lord is My Shepherd." Sorry, I don't have my normal pitch pipe. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me in pastures green. He leadeth me the quiet waters by. My soul he doth restore again, and lead to walk of me. Within the paths of righteousness, within the paths of righteousness, before his own name's sake. Yea, though I walk in death's dark vale, yet will I fear none ill. For thou art with me, and thy rod, for thou art with me, and thy rod hast had me comfort still. My table thou hast furnished in presence of my foes. My head thou dost with oil anoint. My head thou dost with oil anoint, and my cup overflows. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. In God's house forevermore, and in God's house forevermore, my dwelling place shall be.
Channeling my inner Randy tonight. I've got props. Today's tax day. And so I was going to talk about my third least favorite day of the year, preceded only by property tax day and property tax day number 2. But I'm not going to do that because who wants to end the day on such a downer? So I'm going to move to a different topic. A couple months ago, Maddox and I bought a 3D printer, and it's been just a lot of fun to play with. I know the boys came over a couple months ago and for part of one of the men's days and got to see kind of how that works, and so I just want to talk about that a little bit. It is amazing how affordable they are now. It's the free market at work, truly. And something that was once only affordable to the very wealthy or at college universities is now affordable for an 8-year-old with a little bit of help from dad, of course. But in this time, they've gotten cheaper, faster, and better all at the same time, and that's not normally a combination you get all at once. They kind of went through the same improvements and evolution that computers, cell phones, backup cameras, many other things have gone throughout history. Indoor plumbing, as an example, where only the wealthy had it, and then eventually everybody has it, and it's accessible. And so now there's tons of different manufacturers, thousands of different filaments and materials, and endless numbers of parameters and variables to tweak. I've wasted many an hour learning about it and tweaking things to get your print just right. Then there's this whole community of people online as well that share their print models and give you advice freely. It's pretty cool. And what's really the coolest part about it, for me at least, is that they give you the ability to watch something kind of appear before your eyes. It can be fun things like Maddox printed this little egg and it's got a little octopus thing in it. It all prints in one piece all at one time. Or it could be something functional. This is the pump caddy for Ezra's pump, so I was able to print that. But these are just free things that people had online that somebody else solved the problem, and so I was able to download it and print the same thing. And so there's lots of things you can use it for, but to be able to watch something just appear in front of you, you gotta be pretty patient. It takes a little while, but it's a lot faster than it used to be as well. But just to turn nothing into something, to take an idea in your head and make it into something that functions and solves a problem, it literally is the power to create kind of at your fingertips. And it's different than building something, building a birdhouse we did with the boys last Mother's Day or whatever that might be. It's literally just appearing in front of you as it goes, which is just, it's cool to watch, it's cool to think about. So I just want to think about that a little bit. But before that, I want to walk through, because it seems so easy. You know, you pull it up, you hit print, and the thing pops up in front of you. But there's a lot that goes into the front side of that has to happen, just to allow this silly little egg to appear on the print plate. An intelligent individual had to come up with the idea for the 3D printer in general, right? Then it had to be followed up by many more intelligent people refining and improving the technology until there was an actual useful product. And then that happened over and over again, so you have all these variety of options. Then it has to be mass produced and able to sell. And then it has to be able to be purchased on a website that is on the internet. None of these are simple things. These are all highly complex things. Delivered on a truck. It's been developed over the last 100+ years. And then we had to put it together once it actually got to our doorstep, not to mention the cardboard that had to be made, right, to make that all happen. Put it together, relatively simple, but still kind of complicated. But that just gets a printer sitting next to you that doesn't really do anything. Then you got to learn the software that operates the printer, and that had to be, somebody had to think of that and come up with that and make that work. Then we got to learn how it works, and then it writes the code that tells the printer what to do. Because in the end, it's just a dumb device. It doesn't know anything. It just does what it's told. The slicer software is powered by a computer that somebody had to think of and make and manufacture and all of those things. And you're still not ready to print because you have not even selected what filament you're going to use, what type of plastic, what color it's going to be, how it's going to work. Thousands of options there. You got to load all that into the machine. And now you can finally take something as simple as this little egg and send it from the computer to the printer. In 45 minutes maybe, I don't remember what the print time was on that, this little thing appears in front of you, and it comes off and it goes together and it's done. However, if it messes up, it doesn't tell you why it messed up. Nothing tells you what's wrong. It just didn't work. And so now the intelligent person has to then figure out what in the world happened. Why didn't it work? What failed? What do I need to fix? It doesn't do anything that you don't tell it to do. It's just a dumb machine. It can't design its own prints. It can't print its own parts. It can't load its own filament. It's all wholly dependent on my input, Maddox's input. So all of that effort that I laid out, all this time and money just to create this unintelligent little part made from plastic that at the end of the day doesn't really do anything. This adds value, I guess, but this is just fun. It's just so cool to have that power of creation at your fingertips, but at the end of the day, it does not even come close to comparing with the ability of saying, let there be light. And everything is done. There is no There's no oopsie, I got to retry that. There's no I'll tweak this and try it again next time. It was just done, and that's just amazing. I'm always just blown away by that, especially the 3D printer just gives me another way of seeing that, because I can create now, but man, it is nothing. It is nothing at all, anywhere close to comparable to what God did through Jesus in the beginning, and so it helps put me in awe of the fact that we worship an all-powerful God, the all-powerful Yahweh, the creator of the universe through his Son's voice, the one and only God that knows your name, that cares about you, that has expectations of you. And that's kind of a scary thing sometimes, that he has expectations of you, ways to act, things to do, a purpose here. It can be scary and intimidating, but it can also be empowering, that you have a purpose. And he wants to have a relationship with you, and I think that's the coolest part. This God that spoke the universe into existence with just a couple of words wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to hear from you. He wants you to talk to him. He wants to be with you. That's why he made us, so that we can be with him someday. And that is just, it's amazing. And if he can do all that, imagine what he can do in your life. Imagine what he can change for you. Imagine the good things he can do and the improvements he can make. And we can do that through the waters of baptism, through his Son who chose to sacrifice himself for the thing that was created. I cannot imagine wanting to save this thing enough to put myself in danger, right? No matter what it is. That's crazy. And so we have the opportunity at any time, but especially tonight, that if you've not been baptized, if you've not accepted that Jesus came from heaven and came into his creation and offered himself for us, through waters of baptism, we can be saved. You can be saved this evening. But if you are following him and you have been baptized, maybe you're struggling, just imagine what he can do with just a couple of words, what he can do within your life as well. We can help you at all in any way. Please come to the front as we stand and sing.
The great physician now is near, the sympathizing Jesus. He speaks the drooping heart to cheer. Oh, hear the voice of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. Your many sins are all forgiven. Oh, hear the voice of Jesus. Go on your way in peace to heaven, and wear a crown with Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. All glory to the dying Lamb. I now believe in Jesus. I love the blessed Savior's name. I love the name of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung, Jesus, blessed Jesus. And when to that bright world above we rise to see our Jesus, we'll sing around the throne of love, his name